Isham Jagadguru Padapadme Payo Shritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu Namaste Yatirajaya Vivekananda Sure Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swami Bhavane. Good evening. Good to see all of you again. So last time we gave one talk on Sri Ramakrishna's philosophy of education. So this time, partly because I'm going to Kashi on Friday, so the topic was Sri Ramakrishna, the Gospel of Ramakrishna. But we're going to do something. First, we're going to talk about one topic that I wrote an article on, a series of articles which will be published in one of our English journals, Vedanta Keshari. Vedanta Keshari. And actually what we're doing is that we've done lots of research during the last 5 years. We've done lots of research during the last 5 years about different places that Sri Ramakrishna has visited in Kolkata. Many hidden places are there. And so what we're trying to do is what we call Indachinta. So we want to bring this out, bring it out in the serial form. A lot of hidden places are there. And so this idea has come to us. But I've been to many pilgrimages in my life, here, in my time here. Last year I went to Kailash Manasarovar, and there's 12 Jyotirlingas I've been to, Amarnath, so many places. This idea struck me actually, that I've had both types of experiences. How many of you here have gone to Kashi? Raise your hand. Okay, almost anybody. Okay, yeah. That side. Haridwar? Okay. So many people are here. How many of you here have traveled to some place of pilgrimage in your life? All of you?
Some place of pilgrimage.
Yes, sir. Specifically, this side did not raise their hand, that's why I was asking. Okay. So, basically, this first article I wrote, which will be published in Vedanta Keshari, is called Sri Ramakrishna and the Pilgrimage Mindset. And a lot of us have this feeling that we go to a place of pilgrimage, and we want it to be actually spiritually fruitful most of the time. Sometimes we go there for some relaxation, but most of the time when we go to a place of pilgrimage, we want it to be spiritually fruitful. What do I mean by that? When we go, it should bring some transformation in our life. Is it not? Some change it should bring in our own life. Somehow, it's just not enough to go there and have a nice experience. But when we return from that place of pilgrimage, it should make us a better person. And especially in this day and age, more centered and more balanced. And that can only come from some type of communion with God. God is a very broad term. Last time we talked about Nirguna Brahman, Saguna Brahman, different types of definitions of God. Even if we take it from the Advaitic standpoint, you're all here attending the class on the Kathopanishad?
Yeah.
Huh? So there's one sloka there. Nayam atma pravachanena labhyaha na medhaya na bahuna shutena yam eva esha vinute tena labhyaha tasyesha atma vinute tanu swam. So that last part, that the first part of it means the Atman cannot be realized just by listening to scriptures or even awakening of the buddhi. That by itself is not sufficient to bring about the realization of the Atman. Then the last two slokas, tam eva esha vinute tena labhyaha. Vinudetena labhyaha. That person has to seek, he has to pray towards that Atman within. He has to pray. And the last part, Tasyesha Atma, Vivinute Tanum Swam. And then the Atman itself will choose who it will reveal itself to. Why I'm bringing this up is that even in the non-dualistic school, this idea of prayer, this idea of seeking, it pertains everywhere. So going back to our original Sri Ramakrishna and the pilgrimage mindset, so I was just even saying in my own life, without using names, sometimes we go on a pilgrimage and the scriptures are there. The scriptures, I looked at all the scriptures, many of the scriptures, they say that the pilgrimage is something fruitful. It has a special manifestation. Sri Ramakrishna says a pilgrimage has a special manifestation of God. And I think that's quite obvious, so you don't have to dwell upon that. But two things are there. Swami Chidekananda explains the reason why this is. Swami Chidekananda says that the reason why this is, you all know about this three gunas, tamas, rajas, and sattva. We all know about that, right? So, sattva meaning calmness, some type of adhyatmika shakti. Rajas meaning very active, and tamas meaning kind of, we all go through all three stages, so we know what tamas is. It's when the mind becomes a little bit low. The mind is something that, again, remember, the mind doesn't stay in one place. It's actually, the mind is not linear. According to our Vedantic scriptures, the mind is, what is it? Not linear, but cyclical. It's composed of the three gunas. According to Sankhya philosophy and Vedanta philosophy, the mind is composed of everything in this jagat, this mind-ego-body complex, the 24 elements of the world. Everything is composed of these three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. That's very significant to know, because that has a great effect on us as well, understanding our own mind. So going back to the point that Swami Chidekananda says that in places of pilgrimage, because I can raise the question to anybody here. In fact, I'll raise a common question. We say that Ishvara, many definitions are there. Antaryami, it exists inside here, inside the heart of everybody. But at the same time, we say Sarvavyapti, all pervasive. So if it's Antaryami, Sarvavyapti, and even beyond, so what's the necessity of a place of pilgrimage? Does everyone understand the point? If God is everywhere, including in here, what's the point of going to a place of pilgrimage? So Swami Chidekananda nicely answered it, that in these places of pilgrimage, not only in India, even our Swami Atma Priyananda, the Vice Chancellor of Assisi, Vice Chancellor of Vivekananda University, he recently went to Italy, and he went to a place called Assisi. How many of you have heard of Saint Francis of Assisi? So he was a great saint. So he said when he went there, it was like he was in India. That spirituality was there. So basically, in these places of pilgrimage, there's a preponderance of sattva. A preponderance of sattva. And what is the effect of that? So Sri Ramakrishna says that the only requirement that something has to be inside. If you have something inside, then it can get awakened when you go to a place of pilgrimage. The analogy he uses is about digging for water. In any place you go, it's true, the water, if you dig far enough, you'll find water. But it's so much closer if there's a pond below or a lake below, or it's only a couple of feet below. You'll easily get the water. Other places you might have to dig almost 50 feet under. So same way, if you have something inside, Sri Ramakrishna says, that spirit of bhakti or jnana, knowledge, will become awakened quickly in a place of pilgrimage. Is that clear? So then the next question is, so how do we do that? So this is just reviewing the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna. Nothing but his teachings. There's no New Age philosophy from any of us. Just going carefully through his words, basically. It came that we categorize this into 3 different stages. We'll call it pre-pilgrimage mindset, pilgrimage mindset, and post-pilgrimage mindset. So 3 different stages. So Sri Ramakrishna said in one place, तीर्थ आगे मन तोड़ी करता है, एक विशेष भाव तोड़ी करता है. So what that basically means is that we have to, first thing we have to do, pre-pilgrimage mindset. Before going, it's not just a question of that you go and you just, like yesterday I met one of my cousins. She went to some Kalyaneshwari Shakti Peeth. So this is normally what we do. We know 1 or 2 incidents like this, some Purana took place, and we go with that faith in mind. That's okay. But actually what Sri Ramakrishna encouraged and how Swami Vivekananda trained, all of you here have heard of Sister Nivedita? All of you here have heard, right? So this is very applicable because what we're talking about is the training that Swami Vivekananda gave to Sister Nivedita. She came in February of 1898 to India, an Irish lady with no knowledge at all, nothing about India. And 6 months later, she went to Amarnath. And that experience she had in Amarnath, it transformed her entire life. Not immediate, it was over a period of time. It transformed her from Margaret Noble to Sister Nivedita, and ultimately, as Rabindranath Tagore called her, from Sister Nivedita to Lokmata, Mother of the people. It started with this, and actually I can show you it's in her own letter. Yes. And it started with this pre-pilgrimage mindset. So the training that he gave Sister Nivedita at that time, they met for several months, every morning. And he gave her classes on historical, not only spiritual knowledge, historical knowledge, mythological knowledge, political knowledge, as much knowledge as possible. The more knowledge we have, what that does is that transforms. See what that did over there? The more knowledge we acquire, it helps to transform an ordinary piece of ice into the living Shiva. And that's exactly what happened with Sister Nivedita's case. So the first thing is acquiring secular knowledge, historical, spiritual, mythological. And what I say, actually, this has been my own experience. Like when I went to Rameshwaram, I read a really nice series of articles written by one of our Swamis, Swami Atma Shraddhanandaji in Vedanta Keshari. So otherwise, like something in Rameshwaram that you've all heard of the Patanjali Yoga Sutras written by Vyasa. The Patanjali Yoga Sutras. So, anyways, in there, his body is buried there. But no one would have known that. If they said 100,000 Rudras are there, and his body is buried there. So you don't know these things unless you actually acquire the knowledge. So our goal is not to go there as a tourist, but as a pilgrim. as a pilgrim. And the first step of that is to acquire as much knowledge as possible. Then the second step is choosing a spiritual theme. Choosing a spiritual theme. So everyone has their own swabha. And actually this is not as simple as it sounds. To know one's own self, to know one's own tendencies. Swami Chidekananda, in the case of Swami Chidekananda, he chose the theme for Sister Nivedita as an offering, as a dedication to Lord Shiva. Sri Ramakrishna says in the Gospel that there are two types of temperaments that we can categorize ordinary spiritual aspirants into. There's the Shiva type, which we'll call the Jnani, the temperament of knowledge. And there's the Vishnu type, the Bhakti. So recently, I know a couple I know, they went for Durga Puja, they went to the south. They went to the south. And the wife is a very sadhaka, she likes to sit down and meditate. But the husband likes to mix with sadhus. So she really enjoyed the pilgrimage. She likes to sit in one place and meditate. But the husband, when she went, he found there was nobody to talk to. So two different types are there. So here we're talking about path of knowledge and path of devotion. Now we're a combination of all four. We're not saying that all of us sitting here, we have all elements in us. But what we're saying actually is that there's a preponderance within each of us. So that's sometimes not so easy to find out. Swami Vivekananda chose that for Sister Nivedita. So choosing a specific spiritual theme. In the case of Sri Ramakrishna, and he says this about avatars, they have both. So when Sri Ramakrishna will discuss this, when he went to Kashi, he had the attitude of a seeker. We'll see how that manifests itself, of a seeker. But when Sri Ramakrishna went to Vrindavan, he had the attitude of a bhakta. And no matter who we are, we also have to tailor our inclinations in that way as well. So the second part is choosing a theme. Then, so you first acquire the knowledge, and you should go there you should not, otherwise what happens if we don't acquire the knowledge, when we get to the place of pilgrimage, we'll have so many different obstacles in our mind, and we'll be looking for a tour guide. And all our energy will be going after finding a tour guide. We should actually have that knowledge ahead of time. Then we can go there as sadhakas. The third one is withdrawing after choosing a theme. And I want to clear this up right now. All of you may be thinking, okay, apni shadu, apni protibadu. No, this is for everybody. This is for all of us. We're putting out our free time before we go on a pilgrimage. We should all try for this. It doesn't even matter 5 minutes every day, whatever it may be. Third stage is withdrawing into isolation and engaging in meditation. And what I mean by that, I'm not saying meditate like that, that's up to you, but at least we all know the concept of Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, right? Shravana is first receiving the information, Manana cogitating over it. So at least Manana we can try for. We should make that knowledge our own. And not only make it our own, whatever our temperament may be, we should bring some bhav, some emotion into it. Manana. Does everyone follow that? It should touch the heart. Not only the mind, it should touch the heart. Even for a jnani, it should touch the heart. It should be something meaningful. Then what we see in this case of Sister Nivedita, that after she did this, then she saw that Swamiji had her seek the blessings of holy people, well-wishers. Another thing, praying to that, whoever it may be, that local deity, that local deity there, praying that local deity, getting their blessings. So this is the pre-pilgrimage mindset. Now, before we get into the pilgrimage mindset, I want to talk about the different obstacles. Okay. I want to talk about the different obstacles in places of pilgrimage. So, now I'm going to ask you questions, so we'll go back here. Okay, can someone tell me, someone tell me, what are some of the obstacles we face in places of pilgrimage? Tell me an obstacle. Tell me one obstacle. Okay,
In the
so.
places of pilgrimage.
Huh?
In the places of
Yeah, in places of pilgrimage. I'll give one. Say
In many places it is hard to find where the main deity is. I mean, like in Vrindavan, when you get down, it's very difficult to find where the real temple is. I mean, where to go, where what to do. In many places it is like that. There are people who will misguide you.
Okay, yeah, people who misguide you. So what we can do for that is we can try to, as much as possible, get the knowledge, whatever is available. That's what we can do for that. But I'll give a more practical one. That when we go to a place of pilgrimage, the pandas will be there. So you might be having so much bhav. But even Sri Ramakrishna wept at the pandas. He felt so bad when he went to Kashi, despite having so many experiences. We'll talk about that later on. Even he started weeping. Even Thakur himself was weeping. Mother, where have you brought me? Let me go back to Dakshineshwar. Seeing all these greedy people here after money. Oof. So even Sri Ramakrishna felt bad. And that experience is just now 150 years ago. It's still today as well. So that's one thing when we go to a place of pilgrimage. We notice that. Another, please tell.
How do you decide which place should be known as pilgrimage? There are many places, no? Temples, many temples. How do you decide?
So, you see, from a general standpoint, what the scriptures say, and also what's commonly held by the people. But Sri Ramakrishna says in the Katamrita, Jar Bhav Kandila. Ultimately, it comes down to your own faith in something. Any place can be a place of pilgrimage. Swami Chidekananda, when he returned from the West in 1897, and so they asked him, Swamiji, you lived and dined with the greatest of kings, the greatest of riches. We can't even imagine today how the kind of luxury what Swamiji encountered there. Living like a king, actually. They gave him the best of rooms, but he would sleep on the floor. And they said, Swamiji, you've seen the wealthiest of wealthy countries. So now what do you think of your India? Coming back here. He said, before India was sacred, but now the very dust of India is sacred. So for Swamiji, the entire land became a place of pilgrimage. So as our minds expand, as our faith expands, as our spirituality from within expands, we just said earlier that Ishvara Sarvagyapi, all pervading, Antaryami, within the heart. So these are not just empty concepts, but they're to be realized. Okay, so going back, so then we said one was encountering really priests in places of pilgrimage. Another one is our own companions. Sometimes we have a bhav, like this lady. There's nothing against men, but normally we think ladies are more spiritual when they go. So some of them like to meditate more. And then like that. So sometimes like the companions you go with, they might not have the same temperament as you. Everyone they have a different temperament. Okay, that's another type of obstacle. A third type of obstacle, these are all external things, of course. Third type of obstacle, technology. Alright, this cell phone right here. Huh? There's a great book by one Nicholas Carr. I think I just mentioned it in the last. He wrote a brilliant book called The Shallows. And anyone who can read it, it's a really phenomenal book. He traces the technology with the invention of a map, with the invention of the printing press, and how our brains have been fundamentally altered. The physical structure of the brain has been altered by technology itself. They said that with the invention of the printing press, the Gutenberg printing press, initially sentences were very, very long. So you're just reading sentences long. But what happened then is they started to put punctuation. And with punctuation, periods, it gives a pause. Pause means what? Reflection and contemplation. So it made the mind more contemplative, the invention of the printing press. So now what he's saying is that this phone, the mobile phone, this mobile thing, I'm sure all of you have heard about this, but it's really changing the structure of the brain, and it's making, at the very least, that's subject to argument, but at the very least we can all say from our own experience, the mind is what we call in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, Shepa Vikshepa. We have the 5 different states of mind in the Patanjali Yoga. Shepa Vikshepa means it can't focus, it's constantly distracted, restless. So our minds have become more like that now. So this is another obstacle. So Sister Nivedita used to say about Swamiji, his presence, he eradicated that line between the secular and the spiritual. Everything is spiritual. So similarly now we can say with our cell phone, it's eradicated that line between the home and the work. And that same, even home, work, and a place of pilgrimage. That cell phone, it eradicates that distinction. So it makes our minds more outgoing. The purpose of the pre-pilgrimage mindset was to give momentum. Momentum to what? A spiritual theme, an introspective mind, and a focused mind. That was the purpose of the pre-pilgrimage mindset. Another obstacle is, so these are all actually what we've talked about so far, are external obstacles, right? The priest, what was the second, the technology, and the third one. But actually we're not addressing the main thing.
One more obstacle, Maharaj, I find, when like the buildings there, they distract. I mean, we go there, I mean, the pilgrimage is something possibly more pristine and than the buildings. I mean, ornate buildings now, I mean, why now? We have come up around every pilgrimage place. They tend to distract the mind from the purpose of the, at least personally I find that, from the purpose of the pilgrimage. These huge temples which come up in every pilgrimage place. They possibly are not part of the pilgrimage itself, of the place of pilgrimage itself.
Okay, so these are all external.
External.
That's true. But again, so we've so far discussed the external, but actually the main thing we were talking about, and we just celebrated Durga Puja. So it was interesting when we think about where is Mahishashura? We always think of it somewhere outside. But actually Mahishashura is within us actually. The main thing is within us. And same thing, the main obstacle is within our own minds. The nature of our own mind. And I'll give 2 examples of that. One example is that when I went to Kailash last year, I like to do everything in advance. So I was planning everything in advance, 3 months in advance, everything like this and that. The problem is then when you go there, you go with a planning mindset and you just want to execute. You want to execute everything one after another, you want to make your journey smooth. But, so your whole attention goes towards that. That's one obstacle. But more important, there's another, and it's a beautiful quote by Sri Aurobindo, and I shall read it to you because it's very striking. So actually, this is in the article that, yeah, everyone possesses in a large measure two opposite tendencies of character in almost equal proportions, which are like the light and shadow of the same thing. Thus, someone who has the capacity of being exceptionally generous will suddenly find an obstinate avarice arising up in his nature. The courageous man will be a coward in some part of his being, and the good man will suddenly have wicked impulses. This is a phenomenal statement actually, this dual nature of the mind. What we were talking about before, that this mind is something cyclical. We talked about that. So it goes in cycles like that. And we all find that sometimes we've had a very profound experience or we've done something profoundly kind, but then the next moment we act in the opposite way. Or we find it's not easy to recognize within ourselves, but we see it in others. So this dual nature of the mind itself, this is the greatest obstacle. Both are there. That compassion as well as that selfishness. And actually we find this, we'll finish this point and then we'll move on. We find this actually in Sri Ramakrishna's life, that has anyone here read the great master in Bangla called the Lila Prasanga? Okay, one person. Okay, two. Okay, so there's one part there. So there's one part, it's a very beautiful book in Bangla and English both. And it talks about the sadhana that Swami Chidekananda, his disciple, talks about the sadhana he did in great detail. And one thing he talked about is that one of his own experiences was that from his own realization, he saw out of his heart came one sadhu with a trident. Then also, like you can say, like the devil, something they call it papa purushan, something looked very loud, red faced, and then the sadhu with the trident pierced the papa purushan. So that's actually the ultimate of that, but that's in every one of us. So to be aware of that. So we want to give momentum to our good tendencies, our divine tendencies which are within us. Okay, now we'll start with the application of the pilgrimage mindset. So what do? We've talked about the pre-pilgrimage mindset now. We've mentioned the different elements there. So we'll say we've done all that, or we've tried to do that to some extent. So now, how do we approach a place of pilgrimage? That's the next question. According to Sri Ramakrishna, how do we approach a place of pilgrimage? So based on his own life, what we saw was that when he would first go to a place of pilgrimage, he would first go and visit the local deity. He would first go and visit the local deity. Why is that? So one Swami, Gopesh Maharaj, he was a disciple of the Holy Mother, the consort of Sri Ramakrishna, and he stayed in Vrindavan for a long time. So it's in the reminiscences of his that sadhus used to go and spiritual aspirants used to go and visit him because he was a retired monk in Vrindavan for many years, many decades. But when someone would would go and visit him, the first thing he would say is, have you visited the local deity? And the sadhu said, no, I'll go later on. Then he said, no, you go now. Then he gave the explanation. When you first visit a place of pilgrimage, if you don't first visit the local deity, it amounts to insulting the deity. If you have faith, you're going to some, I'm not saying you have to believe, but if you're going to a place of pilgrimage with that shraddha, then we have to give respect too. That respect, mantra. We have to respect the place. We have to respect the local deity.
What do you mean with local deity?
Okay, say in Kashi, we would say Vishwanath and Annapurna. In Vrindavan, we would say Krishna. Local deity like that. Which are scriptures hold and it's held by the common knowledge, you can say. Those local deities like that. Pay your homage. That's one thing. Visiting the local deity. Then second thing, again, go back to the life of Ramakrishna. What did he do? He visited holy people. At that time, Trilinga Swami was there. He visited him. He visited Swami Bhashkarananda, who was a very prominent holy person at that time in Kashi. And one of the reasons why is that in the deity, in the local deity, we say about Ishvara, Nama Rupa Guna, name, form, and qualities. There's some kind of Vishesh Lakshana, some type of special quality is there that's manifested. Say with Vishwanath, Annapurna. So those who stay there for a long time, especially holy people, they'll also manifest that. So Sri Ramakrishna, when he visited Trilinga Swami, it's there, he said he's the living Vishwanath. Living Vishwanath. And when approaching a holy person, these great souls, so in the Gita it's there, Pariprashna Shevaya, so approaching them with humility. So Sri Ramakrishna would ask him spiritual questions. He would not ask him worldly questions. Again, his approach when he went to Kashi, he took the attitude of a seeker of knowledge. So he asked him about questions about Vedanta, but he also served him too. He cooked some payash with his own hand and served him. Same thing in Vrindavan, when Ganga Mata was there. And he saw in her, again, it's a different thing. Kashi of Vishwanath, Annapurna, Vrindavan, that Sakhi Bhav, Ganga Mata is there. He felt so attracted to that, and he almost forgot about he almost did not want to go back to Dakshineshwar. Then his nephew said, your old mother is there in Dakshineshwar. So then he went back. So, first thing is visiting the holy people. First thing is visiting the local deity, the holy people. Third thing, respecting the land. When Ramakrishna, Tumi Jole, Tumi Sthole, you are that land, you are that water. So Sri Ramakrishna, when he was there in Kashi, he saw Chinmoy, actually he had the living realization. This is all consciousness. He saw that underneath the external surface, some dirt was there. But he saw underneath it this gold. He saw this consciousness everywhere. To such an extent that it caused problems. It's not easy to go with Sri Ramakrishna on pilgrimage. He couldn't even go to the bathroom there. He had to take a boat to the other side when he was in that consciousness. It's very significant. Not that we have to do that. But the idea is to give reference to not only the deity, the holy people, but the land itself, the water itself. And the more reverence we give, Jar Bhav Tanila, as much our faith, to that extent we get spiritually benefited. In fact, one thing I didn't tell you, now I'm remembering, that Swami Chidekananda, one of the critical points in his training of Sister Nivedita, in spite of all her good qualities, she was an Irish lady. She came from England. And she wrote in her own diary, she had the same nishtha towards England as a Hindu lady has towards her deity, local deity. So Swamiji, he saw that. The problem with that was that colonial type of mentality, that there was biases there. A bias is there. Somehow that we have to teach India, we have to come and educate them. So Swamiji had to educate and had to crush her, remove that bias. So, actually I'll just read you one thing on this point, because it's a very important point. Here it is right here. See, what he was trying to educate her on, and this is an important point. So she had this bias actually. She didn't realize that she had a bias. And so what he was trying to actually teach her about was that the value of Hinduism, the value of absorption, not conquering, but absorption is the Sanskrit, and not conquering over another religion. So Arnold Toynbee, how many of you here have heard of Arnold Toynbee? He wrote a book called The History of the World, 12-volume book, and he's considered one of the great historians and philosophers of the 21st century. So he wrote, it is already becoming clear that a chapter which had a Western beginning will have to have an Indian ending if it is not to end in the self-destruction of the human race. At this supremely dangerous moment in human history, the only way of salvation for mankind is the Indian way. Hence, we must have the attitude and the spirit that can make it possible for the human race to grow together into a single family. And in the atomic age, this is the only alternative to destroying ourselves. But what a beautiful quote by Arnold Toynbee. And this was the training to remove those biases. So why I mentioned that is that underneath this all is this faith that we have to have in the local deity, in the holy people, in the land itself. So that's what we call the pilgrimage mindset in nature. So we discussed the pre-pilgrimage mindset, making the mind ready, and the pilgrimage mindset. These are very subtle things actually. It's not easy, but we should strive for it actually. But there's also the post-pilgrimage mindset. And this is very important, that the best example of this is with Sister Nivedita. When she went to Amarnath, it's in her diary actually, she saw Swamiji coming back. How many of you have read about Swami Chidekananda's visit to Amarnath? Okay, when he went to Amarnath, when he came back, he had the live darshan of Amarnath, Lord Shiva. And there he received that the boon that he'll give up his body when he wants to. That boon, whatever he wants to give up his body, he'll have that. So Sister Nivedita, when she first saw him, he looked transfigured. So she could recognize, just like Aku recognized in Kailinga Swami, the living Vishwanath. So Sister Nivedita recognized in Swami Vivekananda, that same living Shiva. That was during the trip. But then as they were returning, she felt very unhappy too. You had this great experience, you could have given me something too. And she felt really, that was poking her mind. She felt Swamiji could have given her that experience as well. This is an important point. Swamiji said, you've made the pilgrimage, and you'll go on working. In other words, you be patient, not that you have so much. It's just when you're in the midst of the pilgrimage, that's not the end. That's only the beginning of the journey actually. What's the next stage? The post-pilgrimage. So Sri Ramakrishna said about that one person went to Kali Ghat, one future monastic. Then afterwards he went to with some friends somewhere. And Sri Ramakrishna scolded him. When you go to any place of pilgrimage, or any holy place, or not even place, anything good, and it's also in the educational studies as well, we should keep revising afterwards. I'll give you one nice example of this. There's one Swami Chidekananda. He's the head of the Sydney, Australia Vedanta Society. He is now 97 years old. And he gives these wonderful reminiscences of great Swamis about 60 years ago. But it's like these reminiscences just happened yesterday. He remembers these reminiscences which took place 50 years ago better than you remember what happened earlier this morning. So one time I asked him, how do you do this? So he said you have to keep revising. Keep revising the mind. And keep revising the mind. And that's what happened also with Sister Nivedita. She kept, when you go to a place of pilgrimage, afterwards you keep revising. It's something very intimate actually. Our goal is intimacy. Keep intimate with that, the divine community. So that's it, these 3 stages. Now I'll just take questions because I've spoken quite a bit. So now I'd like to open it up because I also like interactive discussion. Just say something and we'll just now hear from all of you. Just have some discussion about this and any questions. We'll have it. Please. Undoubtedly. But these have the advantage because we don't get that time, and that requires a certain purity of mind, which we have to strive for. But they're what Sri Ramakrishna called a quickening impulse. When we go to a place of pilgrimage, a quickening impulse is there. We feel that. You don't have to go, no one's saying to go to a Kashi or any place like that. But even in our own, you see, I'll give you a better example. Even in our own house, if we just reserve one room or even one spot, there no other thought will take place except the thought of God. There will only meditate. Even that room, that spot will have a different vibration than the rest of the house. So same thing, that it's all the more where sages for thousands of years have done so much tapasya. Why not take advantage of that? If we have, like Sri Ramakrishna says, but you have to have something within. Then if you have a one, then you can add on top of that. But if there's no one, then there's nothing to add to. It can quicken the impulse.
But usually these transformations you are talking about is very temporary in nature. Meaning when you go there, it's your mental state is high, then you come back, it's gone.
See, and see what we said at the end as well. That's why I brought up the example of Sister Nivedita with Swamiji. She saw something of Swamiji. She saw that living Shiva within him. But then the next moment, she's thinking she's feeling bad. So we talked earlier about the cyclical nature of the mind, the dual nature of the mind. Actually, transformations, I don't want to cheapen that word actually. This is like, it's just not a one-day thing. It's not a one-moment thing. It's the beginning of a lifelong journey that does not end. What we try to do, whether it's within whatever our temperament is, whether it's Ishta Devata, whether we believe in the Atma, the impersonal God, whatever it may be, more and more intimacy with that, bringing more and more emotion into that. That's our goal actually. That's bhav. And that doesn't happen in a day. It's the beginning. It's the beginning. I'm sure those who raised their hand, even if you go to Kashi one time, I went to with some people last year to Kailash. They're not monks. Everyone but except me was not a monk. But everyone I spoke to, it had such a transformative effect. What's the transformation? Can't explain it. Anirvachaniyam. You can't put it into words. But it's something that, at a superficial level, we can say, it touches the mind and most importantly, the heart. Bhav. And these are very private things actually. Should not be discussed afterwards. There's something that, it's like the intimacy of what we say in an Indian marriage, between a husband and a wife. That type of intimacy. Such an intimate thing. One person was telling me he went to Kailash and it brought tears to his eyes. Many people say that. Some type of emotion. But these things we have to keep churning. Very private. But you sometimes you find like-minded people, you discuss them. Please go.
Swamiji, nowadays what happens when you visit a temple? When you visit a temple, they are overcrowded and the crowd is most of the time indisciplined. What happens, like for example, when we went to Tirupati, there was a 4-hour queue and when we were in front of the deity, it was not even for 2 seconds. Then how to take the benefit of that?
So it's wonderful that you went there. And actually, I also went to Tirupati. Yeah, what you're saying is very true. How many here have been to Tirupati? Okay, good. But actually what I found the best part of Tirupati is when you go past there, you have the darshan. See, everything is you don't know. This is what Swamiji told Sister Nivedita as well. You've done the pilgrimage. You've done you did so much tapasya. It's like a 4-hour line, 8-hour line. Even Bellarmont, on Kalpataru Day, on the 1st of January, the devotees will be waiting for like 12 hours. That's actually tapasya. That's the tapasya right there. That's what we call the physical and mental austerity. But how do we spend that time? That's why we're saying to give momentum towards this theme. How to keep the mind more towards an introspective mindset. It's the nature of the mind to go outward, to talk about this and that, to get that. But to the extent that we can keep it inside. That's why we're talking about the pre-pilgrimage mindset. Now what you said about Tirupati, even then, you can't put those things into words actually. But you're very blessed actually that you went there and had the vision and had the darshan there. And not only that, but then once you exit there, on the right hand side, there's a place where people are sitting. I don't know if you saw that. I went there, and once you went outside, many people were just sitting there quietly. That's what we say, our own, Bangladesh Jogo. Brother Lawrence said, practice the presence of God. So like that. figure out the ways.
Actually, what happens is people push us and we cannot, we end up with frustration.
Sure, well, yeah, we
Right, actually, I think that when you go to a pilgrim spot, particularly when we have special reference for a particular deity, for instance, when you are going to Kashi and basically you wanted to see Vishwanath and Annapurna, or when you're going to Kamakhya, you are going to see the goddess, or in the case of Puri, it's Lord Jagannath. But in a way, in our religious traditions and in the Shastras, it's always indicated that that particular deity actually pervades the natural landscape of that place as well. For instance, it's always said in Kashi, because I was there, I know, that Kashi ka har kankar hai bola shankar. So, so when you are, and that's why many people, in fact, I mean, we used to wear the shoes. I saw many people, particularly from South India, who would not wear the shoes even in the hottest times of summer. So I think when we go to the pilgrim spots, what we can also do is that we can believe that of course we need to go to the temples and see the deities, but that's not all. We also need to sort of perceive the presence of that particular deity in that place, and that can be done even if, for instance, when you go to Varanasi, if you sit just on the ghats of the Ganges, and if you think about Vishwanath, and Ganga is a living deity in Varanasi, so,
yes.
so the entire flowing river herself is being worshipped every day. Because the Ganga is a fully fledged worship itself. And in fact, the Aarti timing of the Ganges is related to the Aarti timing of Vishwanath, because once the Aarti is done before the Ganges, only then is the Aarti done in the temple of Vishwanath. Yes. So I think that is also another way to approach this. That is, first you see the deity. Probably there are some troubles, and I agree that in all the temples there are some troubles. I mean, whether it's Puri, whether it's Tirupati or Jagannath. Or Vishwanath. But the point is that after that, if we can try to feel the presence of the deity, which is pervasive in that particular place,
yes,
I think that is very important. For instance, if we can perceive the presence of Lord Jagannath even in the sea, that's very important, because Mahogadi is associated with Jagannath. So, and it's said that the Aponarayana, or the Samudra itself, is a form of Vishnu. So if we can reorient our mind in that way, then I think so we also need that kind of eco-spiritual training that can probably give us a different kind of approach to the pilgrim spots.
Yes, and that's exactly right. And that's what we said. That's why to respect the mantra of it, that this mantra, I have to reverence, like Swamiji said when he came back from the West, that every spot of India is a Tirthasthan to be. Swamiji himself said that. So the more we can evolve, and the more we actually see that spirituality pervading. So what you're saying is absolutely, and I'm also just very careful. I'm not, in Sanskrit we say kartavyam, you must do this, you must do that. So we're not saying anything like that. I like that Sri Ramakrishna was so liberal. Jai bhav ten lila. So whatever your attitude is, that's ultimately the thing. But the ultimate thing is we want to bring emotion into it. We want to bring emotion into our spiritual practice, whether it's non-dualistic, dualistic. We want to bring emotion into it. Mother said we have one mind. Acti mon, acti prana che. Kaun dike dikte chahe? Ishwar dike na jagat dike. So that's actually our ultimate goal, actually. That somehow by hook or crook, we want to bring that attitude.
Swamiji, that I just like to, please don't mind, correct me. Jar love, jar bhav, jamon love, jamon bhav, jamon love.
Yes. Excuse me.
Maharaj, I had, like Maharaj, for many of us who attend these lectures, this is a kind of weekly pilgrimage. We come here and we think of, at least for some time, it takes our mind away from the mundane activities of daily existence and brings it, try at least to focus it towards God or Brahman, and then the effect is there for some time, slowly it wears away.
No, you guys, the fact that I say this, I was telling this to the other monks. Really, I was telling the monks in Jalannath and also our Adyaksha Maharaj, Sudhir Maharaj. we're happy to come because you're very, in our Vedanta Sara, it's like Adhikari Vishayaha Sambandha Prayojana. So Adhikari, you're all Adhikaris in that sense, definitely. Otherwise, it's not easy to come a long day, so many pressures of work. But there's obviously some attraction there. So I don't know, but I think you already all have that. That Thakur said you have to have something inside, and then you can get benefited. So definitely that's yeah. So what else have you?
People usually visit places of pilgrimage. Just many people they just visit with prior historical knowledge. Without some people don't have the spiritual knowledge regarding that place. After visiting the place, some people remain attached to the memories of that spiritual pilgrimage. Some just take it as just another visiting place. So where does exist a distinction between these two types of people, or these two types of mindsets?
You mean people who just go just with historical knowledge?
Yeah, and after that remain attached to that as to the memories of that place, and some doesn't. Why it happens to different people?
Okay, that's okay. I mean that just depends on temperament really, and it's not that they're less spiritual or more spiritual or anything like that, but just everyone has their own type of temperament. So we're not really concerned about others, why they do it. Actually, for us, we're all spiritual aspirants here. So we're more concerned, okay, if they do that, that's okay. I mean, one of the great things about Sri Ramakrishna's teachings, what I personally feel, he didn't try to change others, When he went to the West, he gave this talk, it's called it was in Thousand Island Park. I'm forgetting the name of the book. The series of talks. Inspired Talks. And I think it was in Inspired Talks. He gave a beautiful elucidation of Advaita Vedanta. Then someone said, but Swamiji, I don't agree with that. And Swamiji ki bolechen, then it's not for you. Then someone else said, but Swamiji, I like it. Then it's for you. So everyone has, that's one thing we talked about last time when we talked about Sri Ramakrishna and the growth mindset, and we talked about Thakur Bolchen Udarno, the broad-mindedness. We should be able to accommodate. Okay, that's your opinion. That's fine. If you go back to Sri Ramakrishna's first meeting with Master Maharshai in the Gospel, he asked him, do you believe in God with form or without form? And Master Maharshai said, I believe in God without form. Then Thakur ki bolche, that's okay. But don't impose that, don't think that that's the only way. Don't impose that upon others. So, everyone should have their own freedom to their own temperament. We should not interfere with that. What do you think? We should give freedom. Our focus is inside actually. We're spiritual aspirants. So we've come for that only. The whole thing is how do we go not as a tourist, even not as a spiritual aspirant, but to bring it as far as possible inside. Some other questions?
So it is told that whenever you meet an Imani person, you should ask spiritual questions. Now, sometimes we do not find what to ask. Like, what are those spiritual questions?
Yeah. What I feel is that it's good to ask spiritual questions, and then the relationship develops. And also, it's okay that, actually that's not only holy people, but sometimes we need to unburden ourselves as well. It's tough for everybody. So spiritual questions, yes, we're going as a seeker to meet a holy person. Sometimes it just depends on the situation, I guess. There's no blanket type of question, what type of questions you should ask. But what I would say is this, that if you want to ask a spiritual question, something that you find that's meaningful for you, whatever the question may be, Advaita, Bhakti, whatever it may be, but it takes seeking beforehand. So you have to actually, it has to be something authentic to you, not a question for question's sake. So that's again why it takes preparation beforehand. That's what I found. Whenever I used to go, I would go, even now I go meet holy people where I can. I'm a big fan of holy people. I try to, in my own young days, I also do that. But I even find with myself, I have to think about it ahead of time. Something will come then. What's something in the scriptures that's authentic to my life? Meaningful for me. Please tell.
We come here, at least I come here leading our maths and engineering and all these things. And I am really amazed at the profound knowledge, the religious, the Upanishads and all these things, which we are hardly aware of. So I'm just asking this one question, like you said that to go and ask some holy person. The problem is that there are a lot of people in the pilgrimage center or any other place who claim themselves to be holy person. But how do one identify that who is really holy and who is a fake? Right,
that's see, someone asked that earlier, and when he asked it, the video was not on. Now the video is on. So this is true. What you're saying is true, and what I think. I feel that even during Sri Ramakrishna's time, how many people knew then that he was an incarnation? Now that he's gone 100 years later, now we have his picture. Swamiji too. Okay, Swamiji after he went to the West, that's something else. But, so these things are very difficult actually. So, sometimes we hear that there's some person there, we can go meet them like that. Sometimes it's common knowledge. But what I feel more important is we prepare ourselves. That's in the scriptures too. We prepare ourselves and the teacher will come at the right time. It's more important because we don't have control over that. Right? We don't, if there's a holy person or not a holy person, one thing I heard about Kashi is that there will always be a knower of Brahman there. But where he is or where she is, who can say? So we don't have control over that, but at least we can prepare ourselves. And like you were saying, that we should try to feel that presence, try to go with an introspective mindset. And even without meeting a holy person, the vibrancy of a holy place, like we said, it gives a quickening impulse to our spiritual life. I understand it. It's a very valid question, and there's no answer to it actually. Please.
May I suggest an answer of this question?
Yeah, please.
That is, if you choose established like organizations like Ramakrishna Mission or Bharat Sevasana Sangha, the senior monks are definitely proven holy men. Otherwise, they could not have survived there.
That's right. But some basic faith should be there. Some basic faith, because we're the beneficiaries of that. Let me just do it. See, ultimately, if we, in law we call it in American law we call it presumption of innocence until proven guilty. Okay? So some type of shraddha should be there. Otherwise it disturbs our own mind. That's what I feel. And I know that so many things are going on now, social media is there. All these things are true, but that's what I feel. We should not lose that, because that disturbs our, what do we get? If we doubt, what do we get from that? How does that help us in our spiritual path? Yes, what you're saying is true, that we don't know, unless you live with a person day and night, you ultimately don't know who's what. But actually that's besides the point. Main thing is that I want to grow. I want to progress spiritually. The other person is just a stimulus. I want to progress spiritually. So, even in our scriptures, we maintain that vichara, that vivek, that discrimination. We have to try to apply that too. Along with faith, because that ultimately benefits us. Any other questions or any comments?
Well, I think we tend to always focus on the gurus, or whether they are real or fake, whether they are holy or unholy, etc. But I think actually in our traditions the focus is more on the message that is coming from them. That is more important than what they are. And if they are really good, if they are really spiritually energized, then the vak that will be transmitted by them will also be automatically spiritually energized. And that will affect us spiritually. If what they say can't affect us spiritually, then it automatically means that that they are not really spiritually energized. And it's even possible that sometimes what they say is probably touching our heart, but probably they are not good people. But even in that case, an indirect kind of spiritual illumination is possible. So I think if we refocus our concentration on what they are saying, or rather what is coming, the message itself, rather than what they are, then I think then a lot of problems can be solved, rather than believing in a fake guru as an incarnation of God. And that is the problem nowadays, and that's why people are becoming sort of doubtful about all gurus or all holy men. But rather than doing that, I think we should reorient our spiritual sort of attitude towards what they're saying, their sayings, or vak. Because in a way, in our traditions, what we feel is that vak is impersonal. It is not just a personalized kind of thing. That if vak is coming from someone, the spiritual speech is coming from someone, it doesn't mean that that person actually owns that vak. Vak is, and that's why we say that it's the goddess. And we have this fourfold kind of structure, Palaka, Shanti, Madhma, and Vaikali. So when the Vaikali vak is really sort of transmitting the energy of the Pada, which is one with the Brahman, the Shabda Brahman. The Shabda Brahman and the Pada Brahman are one, as Ramakrishna say. So if that is the case, then of course the person from whom it is coming is holy. Or even if he is not holy or unholy or whatever, maybe directly the grace of God is coming down, directly the grace of Shiva is coming down.
See, what I feel is that, again, we're coming as spiritual aspirants. So, actually, even a holy person, what are they doing? It was actually best Swami Chidekananda said it nicely. There's one book, Talks with Swami Chidekananda, and one time, Sharad Chakraborty, who wrote his reminiscences, he saw Swamiji smiling. Then he asked Swamiji, why are you smiling? Then Swamiji said, I want to see, like every human being is like a ghata, like just a pot with water. If the Divine Mother rouses anybody, then that Shakti can manifest. So actually, where is this Shakti coming from? It's coming from the Divine. It's not, if it's coming from an individual, it's actually a very beautiful thing. They say that Ramakrishna says, to the extent that this aham mama, this ego is, I and mine is there, to that extent, this manifestation of this adhyatmic shakti gets blocked. To the extent it can get removed, to that extent this adhyatmic shakti manifests itself. You got my point. So, and actually that's, so let's, and of course, this Vishwas to the Guru is definitely is an important factor. So, these are, and I understand like the day and age that we are in, our social media day and age, but what I feel is that, so it's important to go to the source. They're transmitting the source, which is that divine source behind. If we keep that inside, and we need to take the responsibility upon ourselves too. We're spiritual aspirants. We're all here, we're all spiritual aspirants. Our goal is not if this person is perfect or not. Sometimes our mind starts going there. When our mind should go more inwards actually. Where am I progressing? It's really easy for us to catch the faults of others. But we only have one mind. You want to give towards others, or we have to put it towards ourselves actually. That vichara, that this prana is a very precious thing. How much will you waste it on another person? So that's why we have to get clear. What is our goal? Whatever it is, you have to get clear about it as a spirit, because you're all sincere spiritual aspirants. Otherwise, you won't come here. So, the more clarity we get on that takes prayer, tapasya, and everyone has their own individual journey too, with the divine. Everyone has their own individual magical journey with the divine. You don't have to be a monk. Everyone here has their own. If you look back on your life, see where you were 5 years ago, don't compare with anyone else. Look where you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, where you are now. Everyone has had some contact. Even when you go on a pilgrimage, this is one thing I want to say, but even when we go through some very tough times, afterwards we come out of it. So we see the grace. That grace aspect, we remember, that becomes our treasure actually. We sometimes go through tough times. When I went to Kailash Manasarovar last year, the party before me, 5 people died because of bad weather. And because the camera is on, so many things happened there. I won't say what happened. But
Stopping it.
Sometimes tough though, it was sometimes very tough. But now when you look back up on it, it brings some intimacy actually.